Hi guys. Alright, so as promised, we're going to talk about continuing to talk our talk on trading places and the mind meld that takes place, the complete and total mind meld. And so, as I said, this was a little bit more complicated of a topic. I couldn't just answer it in one video. So I want to make sure to continue our talks and continue to explain how it is that I see, how it is that I do it all the time, and how you can use this in your everyday life to understand what is going on. So, hi Rathan, thank you for joining. Alright guys, so mind meld, trading places. Let me start by saying a few things. This was not an easy pill for me to swallow. I'm being so sincere right now. And by this, I mean to say this. Alright. In the world, what you are seeing is a combination of all of your experiences to include your wounds. Okay? These wounds are going to be on display no matter what outside of you. This is very important to understand. It is what's going to be called and asking you for acceptance. Until you recognize it in yourself, that is determining what you see outside in the world 100%. There are 5 wounds: injustice, abandonment, betrayal. Get where I'm going with this? All of these things, as an example, then appear outside. So it's important to understand that when we feel something that we don't like, it is there for you, for your acceptance. And the reason it is appearing this way, whether you can identify it with it or not, is for your transmutation. You are the veil. I mean this so sincerely. Now, the reason I say that I had trouble with this to begin with is because, as you know, I maybe didn't always have the best relationship with my mother. And so I wanted to do the exact opposite of everything I thought she did wrong or whatever. And in my effort to become the opposite of her, I turned into her. Because I can't escape myself. It's the same soul looking at itself from different angles. And these things have manifested in my life in 3D so completely that I know I cannot deny the fact that it's the same soul looking at itself from different angles. In fact, my children and my family help me understand the nature of God. So it is what it is. But I say this because one day it took my father looking at a picture of my daughter and I, asking me, "When did your mom and you take this picture?" For me to realize that it was the same soul looking at itself from different angles. Amusing this is, trust me. And I'm telling you guys this because your parents typically provide you a connection to the unconscious wounds that you may be having. They're not always responsible, but hear me out. You chose your parents to match your wounds so that you would be able to identify it one day. So you and your parents are the same being looking at the same problem from 2 different angles. You guys know I like to use the example of the 6. If you're standing in front of the 6, it looks like a 6. But if you're standing behind the 6, it looks like a 9. It's the same issue. The point in perception in time where we've projected our consciousness is looking at it from a different angle. But it's the same soul. These are basic principles. Whether we accept this or not is irrelevant. I'm just saying what is. This is why we must have ultimate forgiveness for everything, because in truth, everyone is participating in a way to show you what it is that you need to accept about yourself. Because if you can change this tiny little aspect of yourself, you will no longer be magnifying it in the world. And as a result, the world starts to change because you've done something about what you're projecting. Honest, real talk, this is what happens. Okay? All right. So when it comes to relationships, right? If you're going to be working on your self-love and you're going to do all of this to finally get into a relationship, you're going to have to keep it. And those of us who would like to maintain our relationships while understanding this, we're going to have to reconcile. So this is going to help you understand the fact that the truth is you are the ultimate truth, and everything that you see is your shadow. So if you are the light, your shadow and your light are the one and the same being. It's not two bodies, it's one body. One whole body that you are dividing into sections so that you can see both points of perception. Trouble is you can only inhabit one point at a time. So if you're looking at the 6 from in front of the 6, you're only going to see the 6. And if you choose to embody the other body, you're only going to see the 9. Right? If you can understand this, then you'll understand the most basic of principles, what all people provide to you. And that is a reflective surface in order for you to see what it is that you are thinking. What it is that you are thinking and what has solidified in the 3D are one and the same thing. Always. One and the same, always. They are not separate. They are not divided, which is why you're always told the kingdom of heaven is within. That's right. It's within your skull where you are making everything that you are seeing outside of you. If you can get this, you'll be freed from any situation ever. Okay? But I do understand that there are going to be moments in which we're going to argue who's correct. The one looking at the 6 or the one looking at the 9. And that's the moment that I want to talk to you about. That's the moment where we're trying to bridge the divide between the two opposing views and recognize ourselves in the moment so that we can be able to look at it and with a kind and open heart say, okay, I see the 9, but let me show you also my point of view here from the 6 and vice versa. And this leads to an understanding where everyone's happy. But until we recognize that both points of perception are valid, we're unable to bridge the divide. That's the reason for a relationship. That's the reason why two things looked opposed. Okay, I gave you the example of, I asked you all, please look into your own eyes. Like right now, please. And you'll say, okay, but hand me the mirror, please. Right? You need a reflective surface. Okay, so with all of this understanding, you apply this to your relationships in everything. You're not always going to be able to separate. This is why I recommend using the power of hindsight to reflect on what has happened to you in order to be able to see it from both sides. Okay? The more you develop this practice, the less and less you'll need division, because the instant you catch yourself on autopilot, you can stop. Okay? But in the interim, what you're working on is trying to see things from all angles, not just theirs. And you're trying to develop an appreciation for what it is they are trying to show you, because this is necessary in order to see yourself. Okay? This is the painful part, you guys. Not everything that you are shown is going to be pleasant, because we've been dodging our wounds and not acting as our true self for fear of being hurt again, for that feeling again. It felt so icky the first time, we don't want to repeat it. Whatever the case may be, this creates a facade of automatic behaviors that then interplay in your 3D world. So literally, this is the animating force that animates the things that you don't want. Because those people are playing that role, you still need to appreciate it, because whether you like it or not, if they didn't do this, you don't snap out of it. So you need to appreciate everything as one whole being. It's very important. So from that understanding, when I say that you trade places, I'm saying that you've been doing this your whole life. You're just not aware. You're not aware of it. You think you stand still in the same body. okay? And these are subtle things that, because they're very obvious to me now, I can tell the difference when I trade perspectives. But what that looks like is that we remain in our physical vessel. We look the same, but suddenly our preferences change. Our ability to communicate changes. Our ability to see ourselves and the other human being changes. You're able to see the perspective from which, when they were insisting it was a 9 and you couldn't see the 9 because you were too busy shouting that it was a 6, suddenly their perspective makes more sense. And this usually happens when you use the power of hindsight to review what has happened. Remember, you are simply living memories. That's all that you are. Everything already exists. Everything has already happened. You are simply entering the living memories. So these living memories are on display everywhere. And here's the thing that I understand that most people have trouble with. All bodies are illusions. They're little walking, talking data memory banks of your own experience. They're people, they're God, they're doing you a favor, they are serving you. And the most important thing I heard today weren't even my words, but I was so impressed with them. I'll say it. When someone was asked, what stops you from achieving your goals? And there was a long list of all these kinds of reasons why people came up with why they couldn't achieve their own goals, right? And this one person answered, nothing. Everything is a construct and you all are guests inside my construct. He understood how the guest serve the reflection, without which you need one to understand the other. This is how the one expresses as the many. You need to keep this in mind. Every single human being, I don't care what they look like, I don't care who they are, I don't care what experience is so completely opposite from what you think you know, I don't care. All that is a different order of your universal experience turned into the illusion of another body. It is always you. It's your story. It's your living memories on display. And so that is how every single human being helps you. And I know this because if it wasn't for the fact that I bridged the divide like this, first with my daughter, then with my partners, that I understood I can do this with every single human being on earth. And so I got to understand the construct of being behind the veil and understanding that everything that is playing out is most definitely me. And you notice that I don't reject it. I don't care who likes what. It is my job to stop opposing God's will and accept the best of everything, because everything on display is simply your experience. Okay. That being said, the changes that occur when you switch places, you want to take advantage of this time. You want to take advantage of the time that allows you to see what you did to your human, and vice versa. Okay? That's how karma works. You're on the receiving end of your own actions. All right. This is still true. This is always true. The only thing on display is your story. So if someone is doing you the favor by acting it out for you, it is for you. So when you start to do this, you develop a better understanding and appreciation for what is being shown. So as I said, sometimes there are going to be arguments. There are going to be painful memories. In my case, painful memories were, I knew it was the experience that I rejected as my father. There was the experiences and the painful things. Anything that had been left unforgiven in a couple, in a relationship, is going to be triggered. In love is love reflected. And so they're helping you, not trying to hurt you. Now, if this help is abusive, if it doesn't make you happy, it is your job to correct it, but that's not what I'm talking about. If this type of help, when you're in a relationship, is not appreciated, however, we're not going to understand. Now, I don't mean the abusive stuff. You put an end to that. If you've been abusive to yourself, it's important to figure out that you've been abusive to yourself, and you put an end to that quickly, and that's the end of that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a committed relationship in which two people are determined to help one another realize their God. In that process, two people must become one in order to understand that, in order to understand the whole nature of the relationship in general. It is the most precious gift in the world, because that is divine love. And if you receive divine love from another human being by bridging the gap between two beings, then understand that you have just hit the jackpot, that your work is complete, you are healed, and you're ready to receive this love. Okay? And every relationship that you will ever have is an attempt to reach this state, is an attempt to get into a relationship with God. And the two human beings that are interacting are showing you how to do it. This is the ultimate goal. This is what people are seeking when they're seeking a relationship. And I know, because without seeking it, you wouldn't know who you are. It's in a symbiotic relationship, and that's how love shows you the nature of I am. It's how love guarantees that you know for a fact that what you see outside of you is God, and that human being before you is God. And so for God, and this is true of any relationship, for God to come down straight out of heaven and fulfill your desire and be willing to work with you and work through all the obstacles you've ever built against yourself to try and prevent you from having a loving and harmonious union with yourself, then that needs to be appreciated. And a lot of us take it for granted, especially when our wounds are highlighted, when we're scared, and we act out of character. But this is what's happening. You are attempting to bridge the divide between two people. When no divide exists, you are one with your partner forever. When you realize that you're this constant, nothing else does. Nothing else is its equivalent. When you truly, truly, truly understand this, that's what you fight for. That's what made everything that ever happened in your life worth it. Because you're about to be shown yourself. And your job is to accept it, revise and heal, and make sure that if you are projecting crap stuff onto your partner so that you can see yourself and they're agreeing to do this for you, then appreciate it for what it is without being angry at what is being shown. Okay? Very important parts of the steps. All right. So the way that I bridge this divide is very simple. I will look at what's being shown outside, and I try to see it from a very detached standpoint. If you notice, I almost look at it as if I'm watching a movie. What is this trying to show me? What did I miss? Because in the moment, when you're upset and you're defending your stance, remember, you're defending the fact that it's 6 and not 9, or whatever the hell you were doing in the moment, and you were angry and you weren't even paying attention because the only thing you wanted was to be heard. In that moment, you were yelling and talking at each other. If that's the point that you reach, take a moment to step back and look and think what else was shown, because I guarantee you, while you were on autopilot, you missed the point of the interaction. And this moment should be taken to reflect, to understand what is being shown, no matter what it is. This is the standpoint that helps you fill in the blanks. This is the standpoint that helps you reach compromise. This is the standpoint where you can start to appreciate the other human being for what they're showing you and what they're showing you in yourself. These things are so important because without being able to step into the body of our person's point of view, whoever this person may be, right? We can't possibly understand what they're saying. So the next time that gets, we're not creative in our arguments. We fight over the same thing over and over again, right? So that the next time the fight happens, you're looking at it from a healed perspective so that the fight can dissolve into the permanent dissolution, because together the partnership has resolved it. This is necessary. As a result, though, if you're wondering, have I switched places with my partner at any point in time? Has this happened to me? Are you serious that we do this all the time unconsciously? Yes. You could fall asleep and wake up in a new reality, so yes, you do. That the way that you will notice that this is happening, because all I'm teaching you guys is the things that are possible within your body anyway. This is you. This has always been you. There's no new skills under the sun. All I'm teaching is what has always been possible. So by making you aware of these things, your awareness of them changes, right? So side effects of trading places means suddenly you might find yourself liking the same foods that they like. Suddenly you'll find yourself doing things that you would never do before. Like say, for example, if it was a same-sex couple, right? And one partner would never get the nails done and the other partner gets their nails done. Okay, suddenly this partner gets their nails done and the other partner doesn't want to get their nails done. That kind of thing, that switching of trading places, start to pick up on those tiny little nuances and you will notice that you have traded places. Start to notice all of a sudden maybe you never, like, one that used to be true of me is I hate barbecue sauce. It's not my favorite. I love marinades. I love making my own. But barbecue and me, not my thing. Okay, not my preferred flavor. All right. But it used to be my partner's favorite thing. That was the thing. Okay? And suddenly I'd find myself craving something barbecue flavored. And I understood in those moments I had just traded places. I'm asking you to become aware of these little nuances because you've been trading places your whole life. You trade places with your children, you trade places with your mother. The only difference is you're not aware of it, so you pretend to die and then take up a new point of perception by projecting your body into another imaginary point of perception and making another imaginary, but it's all the same soul looking at itself from different angles. But you don't have to die if you understand this, all right? Now, these flips, these tiny little nuances start to happen. They're there for you. What's going to happen in these times is the experiences that you've had, the points of contention, are going to fly at you rapid fire. All right? Rapid fire, the things that you guys used to fight, except now that you've traded places, you're on the receiving end of what you've done. So let me prove to you that this happens with or without your consent. Have you ever been in a relationship, and this is no judgment, and you've been the one who took the person for granted, who just didn't appreciate them, or, all the good stuff that they did, or whatever, and they finally leave. And suddenly you realize everything that they used to do or have or whatever, because suddenly you're on the receiving end of a relationship that is now mirroring what you did to your other partner. You are always on the receiving end of your own actions. There is no escaping cause effect. The only thing you are doing is trading points of perception between being cause and looking at the effects. But all points of perception come from you. There isn't one human being on earth that isn't within you, within the constructs of your mind. Okay? But, let me see, Jen. Yes. That's so perfect. Yeah. But again, So these are little things that you will notice. And it's not exclusive to dating like one person. This happens regardless, whether you realize it or not. We're always going to be on the receiving end of our own actions. So in understanding that, you're able to bridge that divide. So the purpose of that is to understand and look at it with a clean and unbiased heart. Say, okay, this is happening because I needed to see this, this, and this. When you can accept it, no matter what was shown to you, you don't have to tolerate it. But no matter what was shown to you, you can accept it, you're able to transmute it. If not, what happens is it gets pushed aside because you're not paying attention. It goes back around and it will repeat in your life in a pattern over and over again throughout time for as long as is needed for you to accept who you are. I hope this is helping. So while this is going on, and I said you have this rapid fire interaction between the two and the karma is going back and forth, the purpose of these moments are for you to understand both perspectives, because with both perspectives you now have a point of compassion, and now you have a group goal that you can work towards as a couple, and not fear letting go because you're facing something that you would consider quote unquote ugly within you, something that's unresolved or whatever. But the truth is, in love, if you're really going to help people, if you're really going to help people, you're going to have to look at this with complete and total objectiveness, acceptance, and that changes how you interact. I'm really hoping that you guys, like I said, this is a long answer. I'm not done explaining the process, but I want to get the basics, because if you have the basics, then you'll understand why it's happening. Okay? All right. So, very simple. Use the power of hindsight. Look back at your memories and try to understand things from their perspective as well. When you take the time to really listen, you will realize that both perspectives are valid. It's not a right or a wrong. It's more like who's in front of the 6 and who's in front of the 9. When you have it like that, you're able to have a totally different interaction, a totally different relationship. You're able to bridge these divides, and then together you start conquering things. As a result, the wounds go away. You enjoy the most harmonious union and everything you've ever strived for. Like, you realize, wow, what I was seeking me this whole time. But you do it with peace. So practice taking on the perspective. If you need to take a time out because you can't do it in the moment because you guys are arguing over 6 and 9 in an elevated voice, do that. But don't do it by wallowing in why it's 6. Do it by, okay, how is this 9? When we do it from that perspective, we try to envelop their side, okay? But no worries. If by chance we're not able to, we'll just end up trading places anyway. I promise. So I'm hoping this helps. Keep it in mind. Think about it. I know it's esoteric. I know it sounds kind of crazy, but you're doing it anyway. You're doing it with your children. You're doing it with your partners. You're doing it with anybody you can think of. You're absolutely doing this. You have been. You know, it's something I want to make you aware of, because I'm not lying when I say the one expresses as the many. That's the one thing that is always true. So if we can understand how the one expresses as the many, we have a totally different outlook at everything that occurs. And then it doesn't matter what we're shown, because we appreciate it. We don't have to tolerate it, but we appreciate it. So for example, if every single relationship we've ever had, we've been taken for granted, then, and we think that's what's going to happen next, that is our shadow. the people must show up as your shadow for you to see that. So appreciate even the ones that take you for granted, because you need to learn how not to take yourself for granted. When you stop taking yourself for granted, the outer world does too. But without someone teaching you what you're doing inside, you can't see how it's playing out outside. When you're able to do this flip between both sides of the veil and saying, okay, if it's me, how is it me? you develop this sort of peace that it really doesn't matter what happens out in the external world, because you know it can be revised within you. So I hope, I don't want to take too much time, you guys. I know it's Saturday night. You guys might be having out drinks, barbecuing. It's great weather. You should be out there. So I guess I'll just keep answering this question. But if anyone has any questions as to how, what, where specifically, ask them, because that'll help me determine how else I answer this. But just remember the two steps. Take a moment to reflect, know that it's you, and try to see things from their eyes. The more you practice seeing things from their eyes, you're able to bridge the divide of the two opposing opinions. Because the truth is, the two opposing opinions exist here. You, the actual you, not the you that you're pretending to be on either side, exist in the space in the middle. Your job is to become the middle so that both things make sense. When you can do that with every human being on earth, everything makes sense. So I hope that helps. Yes, Jen, absolutely. Yeah. 100%. I traded places with my daughter. I trade places with her often, and every time I trade places with her, it's funny because she thinks that I don't recognize myself in her maybe sometimes, and I've never denied that she and I are the same exact being. Whether she wants to deny it or not is past the point. I know, because I had to learn the hard way when I used to deny my own mother. And then had to come to the painful conclusion that my mother and I were the same being. And I was like, oh, wait a minute. This is true of every human being. The more you're able to do that, the more peaceful you will be in your interactions, the more accepting you are, the less of a division you're making, because everything is always your experience on display. Self-acceptance helps you see this. But if you're ever wondering how people appear, it's very, very simple. Your brain takes all of your living memories, makes them into infinite patterns so that you can see yourself from every single dimension at once. It's a beautiful design. It's a flawless design. Our job is to stop pointing out the flaws where there are none. All we have to do is switch states within, and the outside changes. That's what finding the kingdom within means. It's not that you're detaching from the 3D world. It's not that you're not trying to interact with the 3D world. It's not that you're trying to spiritually bypass. No, it's that you're trying to own your stuff so that your stuff can stop controlling you. In the Bible, you are told of the elite, the ruling class elite, and you're told of the slaves. We are both. We are both. Before we understand that everything is us and that we are the ruling class elite, we are enslaved to our circumstances. Universally true. That's why they say Moses was born into slavery and then made a king. They're talking about you, not Moses. You. Both states exist. Once you understand that you are first cause, you become the ruling class elite. You're no longer enslaved to your circumstances, and that changes everything. Notice how the words are universally true for every single human being in the world. But the only way we discover that we are not our circumstances are us, is to become aware of what we're being on the inside so that the outside can make sense. As above, so below, so within, as without. It makes perfect sense when you really break it down. It's the most simplest concept in the world. But the only way to see this, the only way, is to understand that they're not separate. Your thoughts and the human beings outside pretending not to be those thoughts are the same exact material. One thing, not many. All right. I don't want to take up too much of your time. Stick with me. I'll continue to talk about trading places. I'll continue to make you aware of it. You're doing it anyway, I promise. As soon as you become aware of it, you start developing other superpowers, and I really do want to hear from you because your superpowers are adding to my superpowers, so please keep me posted. I want to hear, and I'll continue talking about this and sharing my findings and trying to explain it. But again, please do feel free to ask questions. It'll help me determine what else to say and how else to describe this. Thank you guys. Love you.